You're listening to Journey for Truth with internationally known medium, Tai Yi practitioner, and radio host Tami Urbanek.
Hello, welcome to Journey for Truth on Spreaker.com and on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. I'm Tami Urbanek. Journey for Truth is always on demand and with many new episodes. There is an awesome website that I think you would enjoy. Life Energy Flow, taiyi.com. Taiyi is spelled T-A-I-Y-I, taiyi.com. On that website, you're going to read an abundance of information about how Tai Yi can benefit you, the different types of treatments that are out there, the history of Tai Yi, it's a very ancient healing modality. It predates acupuncture, and you're going to really enjoy reading the information that is there. Visit lifeenergyflowtaiyi.com for more information and to find a practitioner in your area. My guest this week is David Young, a wonderful Grammy-nominated musician who has been known to play two flutes or two Renaissance recorders at once, and he creates beautiful healing music. He is truly a rags to riches story, and I'm excited to hear his story from him. David, welcome.
Well, hello to you.
First, David, your story is fascinating. First, tell us how you found yourself with your last $100 while trying to break into the music business.
Well, it was 1990, and I was a rock and roll guitar player and a singer, and I was struggling. I had been doing it all my life, and I had different moments of time where things were going well, and they weren't going well. And I, out of desperation, I went down to Venice Beach with my little Renaissance flutes, the same recorders that people learn in third or fourth grade.
Yeah.
And I started playing the flutes down the aisle. I met a woman who played the harp. We made a tape called Celestial Winds, and we sold 10,000 copies of that tape at Venice Beach over the following 2 years. And then we started traveling all over the United States and doing events and festivals around the country. And after a couple of years, we had sold 100,000 CDs together. And then we stopped working together, and I just started hiring musicians to play with me and make my CDs. And then I started doing these spiritual events after I sold 1 million CDs. And that's what brings us up to date now, where I'm doing these solo Ascension meditation journeys.
That, just the whole story about how you found your way down to your last $100 and then you invested 90 of it into creating a recording that you could hopefully sell. I mean, that must have taken a lot of courage to spend your last $90, and then you spent the remaining $10 on a pizza, which I found very amusing as well. But your last $90 to record, and you didn't even know what the outcome was going to be. I mean, what were you feeling in that moment?
Well, there really wasn't that much to feel, because when you're on the edge like that, you're either in sink or swim mode.
Yeah.
It was really bizarre, and thank goodness it was 25 years ago. I had no idea what was going to happen with my life. I was 30 years old. Everything that I was trying was just not working. And so when I made that Celestial Winds recording, and I went down to Venice Beach, and it was so obvious that, sometimes you have to try hard to sell something, and then sometimes people just want it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to try hard. And it was so unique for me to have been, when you write a song that has words and a message, you work on the lyrics, and then you record it, you add all these instruments, and it's just a whole big masterpiece production, And here I was just sitting on the beach, on the boardwalk, playing my flutes with a woman who played the harp, and we were just improvising, playing beautiful, relaxing music, and there was a constant flow of people buying our music all the time. Honestly, before that, I had never sold any of my music with words like that. And that was the stuff I was putting in all the time and energy with it. I used to call these like my musical doodles. When you doodle on a piece of paper and you just doodle, just imagine somebody who's doodling on a piece of paper, and you've got a big, masterpiece painting behind him, and he's trying to sell a big masterpiece painting, and nobody's interested in that, but hey, how much is it for one of those doodles, And that's really the way it started. I never thought anything was going to come of that. I had been doing that for 2.5 years before I realized, oh my gosh, this is my calling. This is what I'm supposed to do. This has saved my life. I was going to say a different word than life, but then I realized we're on the radio.
Well, previous to that, I believe you were also performing in rock and roll bands, right?
Yeah, I played in an AC/DC tribute band from 1980 to 1982, and I played the part of Angus Young. That's the guy who wears the shorts and the blue suit and just runs around like a madman. Did that, and that's where my life was at, back then when I was 19, 20 years old. And it was a fun thing to do when you're 19 or 20. I mean, I can't imagine a rock band that would be more fun to do a tribute to than AC/DC. And then I played in a band with Matt Epps, who's the drummer in the band Government Mule. And he used to play with some of the guys from the Allman Brothers. And, then, he went his way and I went my way. And I'm so grateful. Back then, when I was going through all these different things, and it felt like nothing was going right in my life.
Mm-hmm. Been there.
I was not grateful to be in that position, but in retrospect, I am so grateful that life went the way it went, just because, as you get older, the desire to play rock music it's different, as we get older, we know a little bit. And the funny thing about it, there are two funny things. One is that when I used to play in the AC/DC tribute band, that was back when hard rock music was called high energy music. It was high energy music, right? But now, spiritual people call music that is uplifting high energy music.
Interesting.
So it's the same thing, but the exact opposite,
Well, when you said earlier, just a moment ago, that you're really grateful for how the experiences came about and the experiences you had, and that just makes a lot of sense. As we get older, we look back and we review our struggles, and we review how difficult we think life was, and then we become grateful for having that learning experience. But I think when you are in the midst of it, you feel like nothing's ever going to change, nothing is ever going to work, and it's easy to get caught up in that fear. And that's why I was so taken aback by your story, in that you had the courage to just throw it all in and just kind of say, well, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and you're going to learn from it. And I think most people can look back and say that. At least I learned something from it.
Yeah, for sure. I have a saying that survival is a great teacher. When I was playing at Venice Beach, I noticed that there was one thing I could do that would completely dissipate the crowd. There could be 10 or 20 people around us watching us playing, like a street performer. And I could do one thing that would just make them all go away. And that was to start playing a lot of fast notes. As long as I was playing these long, slow, dramatic, relaxing melodies, people would hang out and stay for an hour. As soon as I started playing fast notes, they would just instantly walk away. And so that's an example of survival being a great teacher. When you're sitting there on the beach, playing the flute in the hot sun for 6 hours a day, the goal is to do something that people resonate with, that makes them want to purchase your music. And so that taught me what people wanted and what people absolutely didn't want.
Now, how did this all... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, what could be a better teacher than that, if you plant a bunch of seeds, and the seeds on the left all don't grow into anything, but the seeds on the right that you add some special, special magical dust to, and those all grow. Well, keep doing the magical dust thing,
Mm-hmm. Well, in my youth, and mainly in my young adulthood, I experienced a lot of fear, and I can say, yes, I definitely learned from that fear. I learned from that survival energy. Now, could I have learned differently without the survival energy? Absolutely. But, you know, at this point, that's what I experienced. That's what I learned from. And so I never go into judgment of it, but really do appreciate what I learned within my choices. But certainly, as you were also stating, there are easier ways to learn and more pleasant ways to learn too.
Well, do you always give such perfect segues to the people you're interviewing on your shows like that? That was the most perfect segue I've ever heard, because I have a book that I wrote about my experiences in my life, about the incredible things that happen when you listen to your intuition, and the incredible things that happen when you don't listen to your intuition. You know, because they're both incredible, except one is enjoyable and the other one is not enjoyable.
Yes.
And that is called Divine Inner Guidance. It's on my website, davidyoungmusic.com. And it's all short stories from my life. I've done speech stories in there. And it's really a fun book to read because, you know, each chapter you could read in like 5 minutes. And it's exactly about that. When we listen to our intuition, that is the gift. That is the gift that helps take us out of the fear or the struggles of our lives and makes the impossible possible. Or didn't that sound like a quotable statement?
Absolutely, and I completely agree that, at least in my experience, when I have listened to my own intuition, it has served me well. And when I have avoided my intuition, procrastinated, either of those, it has not served me. So I completely see where you are with that and completely agree. Now, how did all of this lead you to begin playing two flutes at once? Because that is what you're known for.
Man, I haven't told that story in at least 24 hours. You should ask. I get asked that all the time. Well, I was playing one flute at a time, like a normal person, one recorder at a time. And in the beginning, when I was playing Lisa at Venice Beach, she only knew 6 songs. Okay, so we played those same 6 songs over and over again, like 30 or 40 times a day. And to any musician, that is called torture.
Yeah.
And so during the afternoon, after I played them each like 25 times, I would just get so bored out of my mind. And all day long, people would be walking by and saying, "Look at that beautiful woman and that beautiful harp. Oh my gosh." And I was like the invisible man. And, you know, I was the middle child in the family in all the rock bands I was in. I was the guy in the middle with the big light on him. You know, I was always the star of my band. You know, and here I am, the invisible man sitting next to a woman who's playing a harp. And so after we had played those songs 25 times each, every once in a while, just to break up the boredom, because I was so bored of playing those same songs so many times, I would pick up another flute, a second flute, and I would see if I could play 2 of them at one time. And any time that I would do that, whoever was walking by would say, "Hey, look, there's a guy playing 2 flutes at one time." And then she was invisible. And that's why I kept doing it. It was either that or be the invisible man.
Right. Excellent. Now, you also have a connection to Paul McCartney. Talk to us about that.
Well, in 1999, I was hired to play at an event in Atlanta that was for his daughter, Heather McCartney. And honestly, God, I have to say that everybody always used to have a favorite Beatle. And if I had a favorite Beatle, it would have been Paul McCartney back then. Mm-hmm. And so I was playing at this event, and he loved it. He started a standing ovation for me. He just had never seen anybody play 2 flutes at one time, and he asked his manager to have one of my CDs, and I didn't charge him, in case you were wondering, you know. And he took that CD back to his office, and he played that CD on repeat in his office for months, all day long. And one of my friends had some business to do with somebody who worked for McCartney Publishing. And every time he called to talk to this business contact, it was my music that was playing on hold because it was playing in the office. And apparently the music, and it's incredible how big this world is, but how small this world can be. Because one of my friends in the Netherlands has a friend, and this friend is one of Paul McCartney's very close friends, and somehow my name came up to this person, and Paul told this person, how great he thought my music was.
That must have felt so, so good. That is very exciting.
Oh, yeah. And now I know what it feels like to be a woman waiting for the guy to call.
Very true. I also found it very interesting how your shoes became associated, or your music became associated with shoes. How did that happen?
Oh, I have these magical shoes. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have magical shoes. It was, I used to wear these really cool loafers that were made out of this light fabric. They were very popular in beachy areas. They're called archipelagos, and that was my trademark. I would play two flutes at one time, or a puffy shirt, and I wore those shoes. And people would ask me about those shoes all the time. This was back like in 1993, 94, 95. And so I contacted the company, and I explained this, and so basically they made me the model for their shoes for a couple of years, and all their bags and their advertisements and all their stores all had me, holding my two flutes and wearing those shoes.
That is
real comfy. Great for summertime, Peter.
Yeah. Now, your the music that you offer really helps people in their meditations. You were talking a little bit earlier about your workshops. How does your music assist people in going into a very deep meditation? I know your music is very beautiful. I've listened to it, but specifically, how is it assisting people?
Well, I have figured out a way to get people from the logical side of their brain into their higher intelligence part of the brain. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you that I did this thing intentionally. It's just something that evolved. And all people have heard the saying that, we only use 2% of our brain power. And the 2% is the logical part. Okay, the whole other 98% has nothing at all to do with the logical part. Mm-hmm. That is our higher intelligence. And someone like Albert Einstein, who is, really respected as being a super intelligent person, was quoted as saying, the most important part of ourselves is our imagination. Now, there's a common thing nowadays that your imagination is not that important, and the imagination is just something that kids play with. And there's very little value to people, adults, in our imagination. But if you think about any invention that has ever been made, somebody had to imagine it first. Mm-hmm. All the things that we look at as facts, math and science, all these scientific things, somebody had to come up with that way of understanding it. And the way they came up with that was through their imagination. And this is what Albert Einstein was saying, was that the things that came to him that were so important, that changed the world in so many ways, were things that came to him through his imagination. Now, there is a difference between the way our imagination is used in physical life versus the way our imagination is used in our heavenly life or our afterlife. Now, all the people, the millions of people who have had near-death experiences, and these people have documented their experiences through all the doctors, and now the doctors are making books that are selling millions of copies, like Dr. Eben Alexander's book, Proof of Heaven, where he interviews all of these people that were his clients, and they all explain what happened in their near-death experiences. And if you have 100,000 people share their experiences of what it feels like to die temporarily, and what heaven looks like and feels like, and the fact that whatever they thought, while they were in that state of consciousness, that heightened state of being in heaven, whatever they thought manifested instantly. Whatever they imagined manifested instantly. Now,
while they were out of body.
While they were out of body, and when they came back into their body, because it wasn't their time to stay in heaven,
right?
They shared this with Dr. Eben Alexander. And then what happened is that Dr. Eben Alexander, I don't know if he got sick or if he got in an accident, but whatever happened, he had his own near-death experience. And everything he had documented from all those thousands of people, that's what he experienced. And because he's a doctor, people take his word more seriously than, somebody who's not a doctor, and that's why he sold like 3 or 4 or 5 million copies of those books. The only reason why he sold 3 or 4 million copies of his books is because mankind is in a different place than it has ever been. We have never had a time in history where so many people, millions and millions of people all over the world, are researching spirituality and practicing meditation and doing all this spiritual work. It's never happened before. And so because there are so many people who are not only curious about what happens to me after this life, but they're actually doing spiritual research so they can have those experiences. And that's what happens at my event.
Okay.
It's an amazing thing. I play the flute for like 30 minutes. After 3 minutes, everybody in the room is completely spaced out, relaxed, in this other zone, and in this other headspace. After 3 minutes, they go like 25 minutes past getting into the zone. And the music becomes one with the light and the energy that they're experiencing in heaven, and it opens them up to have a near-death experience, but without having to have the car accident to get into the near-death experience.
Right.
And so, as of my event last night in New York City, there are 1,248 people at my event who have shared reconnecting with their grandmothers, grandfathers, sons, daughters, wives, best friends from childhood who are now on the heavenly side, and having a conversation with them, seeing where they live, seeing what life looks like in heaven. 1,248 people as of last night.
That's amazing.
And, yeah, it's incredible. I'll tell you, if I hadn't seen this with my own eyes and ears, I would never believe this because I was so skeptical of all that stuff. I believed in meditation. I believed that you really could reach a higher state of consciousness, of peace, and maybe see some colors of different color of the inner light. But I never knew it was possible to do that, and I also had no idea that it would be possible for 841 people over this past year to have actual conversations with Jesus, Buddha, Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, Gandhi, Lao Tzu, King Solomon from the Bible, Aaron from the Bible. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's somebody last night had an experience with Alexander the Great.
Well, what you're talking about is definitely it's an amazing event, amazing experiences, and what you were saying earlier about our ability to imagine and our ability to visualize. And I completely agree that when we give ourselves permission to utilize our imagination, we can create wonderful things in our lives. I've always been taught that part of the creation process, creation meaning that we are creating something that we want, whether it's a relationship, whether it's moving locations, a new job, whatever it might be. But part of that creation process is in visualizing, using our imagination. And also what you were talking about in what you've read about in the book by the doctor who recorded people using their imagination in the non-physical or out of body rather, and then it would manifest. That makes perfect sense just based on what I've learned, based on my own work. That makes a lot of sense. So people can listen to your music and work with your music in order to assist them to attain a deeper level of meditation and work on their creating, their visualizing, their imagining.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to look at it from the perspective that in the heavenly state, your imagination is reality.
Right, exactly.
That's real, because whatever you think of when you're in that heavenly state manifests right in front of you. Every single person who's ever had one of those experiences describes, well, I thought of my husband who passed away, and boom, he was right next to me. I thought of Jesus, and he was right there next to me. Whatever you think of when you're in a heavenly state, because they don't have time there. We have time on planet Earth, and when you think about walking to the other side of the room, well, you think about it, and then you slowly get up, and you start walking to the other side of the room, and in, let's say, 5 seconds, it takes you 5 seconds to get to the other side of the room. But when you're in that heavenly state, when you think, I want to be in the other side of the room, you're instantly at the other side of the room. Mm-hmm. There's no time. You don't have to walk anywhere. You can take a walk if you want when you're in the heavenly state, but whatever you think of manifests instantly. And what I do is that I convince people, before the meditation starts, I convince people that they can do it. And they just have to relax their logical mind, and I tell them, you know what, put your logical mind in your back pocket. I promise you, when you wake up tomorrow, it'll be there. It'll be wide awake. But right now, I want you to go back to a state when you were much, much younger. Like, let's say, when you were 3 years old or 5 years old.
Right.
You know, we all have these incredible open minds when we're 3 or 5 years old for one good reason. We haven't been taught yet not to have an open mind. And we haven't been taught yet that our imagination is not real. When we're 3 years old and 5 years old, we come from the perspective, we approach life like my imagination is real. And that's why kids talk to their moms and dads about, I have these imaginary friends. Yeah. And I go to these imaginary special magic places. Mm-hmm. But after, a kid is about 7 or 8 years old, he's been told so many times by his parents, don't talk about that in front of his friends.
Absolutely. Or act normal. Act normal and be serious and pay attention, or it's time to grow up. All of these comments and statements that, kids hear from their parents because they've lost their sense of imagination.
Exactly. So, that's what shuts kids down, and that's kids become adults. And that's why most adults are shut down in that spiritual way. But, I have to tell you, I'm not a Christian, okay? I'm friends with Jesus, just like I'm friends with Buddha and Mother Mary and the whole heavenly team. But if there's one thing in everything that's in the Bible that I would absolutely bet on, that he really did say, because, from some of the experiences that people have shared at the workshops, that when they're in this deep meditation experience and they're having a conversation with Jesus or Mary, they'll ask Jesus or Mary about something that was in the Bible, that was a quote. And sometimes Jesus or Mary will say, it didn't happen that way. I didn't say that. And it's happened more than one time. But the one thing for sure that I would bet everything that he really did say, because of all the things that we've been talking about in this conversation, how it all connects about your imagination, I believe that the one thing he absolutely did say was that if we're not like little children, we're not going to see the kingdom of heaven. Okay? Now, if you just think about that for a second, a little children. What does a little child do? A little child has imaginary friends and goes to imaginary places.
Right.
Okay? So if we're not like a little child in that way, in that spiritual way, we're not going to have an out-of-body experience or a heavenly experience, because we're not. That's how you have that heavenly experience, by being open.
That makes a lot of sense. As we get older and as we become adults, we take on this personality or this perception that we have to be a certain way, present ourselves a certain way, and it creates this level of restriction, which interferes with creation, it interferes with expansion. So what you're stating in taking on the childlike personality, where we give ourselves permission to use our imagination, to be playful, to enjoy life again, that can assist us in getting to that deeper meditation, that deeper level of consciousness, and really have these amazing experiences that you're talking about.
Absolutely. That's why I try not to call it meditation so much. I do to a certain extent just because people understand what meditation is, but that's why I call this journey. These are soul ascension meditation journeys, because it's a journey. If somebody says, do you want to go meditate? It's like, oh, it sounds boring, or it sounds hard, or something like this. But if somebody says, do you want to go on a journey? It's like, wow, where are we going? It has to be fun. It has to be exciting. And, you know, if you came to one of these workshops and you would hear what people have explained, and it's amazing just to be in the room after I'm done playing, just to hear what everybody has to say, because, you know, everybody's so open then, and when somebody explains their experience, it just blows your mind and opens your mind to these great possibilities. But one of the incredible things that happens is that there's always more than one person in the room who has the same spiritual experience.
Interesting.
Like there might, 2 weeks ago in Boston, there were 3 women in the room who all were visited by Kuan Yin. She is like the Asian version of Mother Mary. You know what I mean? People look up to her as the divine feminine in Asia. And Kuan Yin came to this woman, and there was this golden light around her, and she poured this woman this golden liquid. It was like coming out of a teapot, but it wasn't. It was like a golden light instead of a liquid. And when she was explaining that, she poured this golden light into this cup that she had in her hand. This woman on the other side of the room, you know, freaked out and said, "Oh my God, I had that same experience exactly like you described it." And a woman in the back of the room said, "Oh my God, I had that exact same experience." So then there were other times where, there was one time where there were 5 people in the room who all had experiences with Jesus, and he gave all 5 of them a Hebrew symbol.
Huh, interesting.
And they all described it the same exact way.
Oh, that is very interesting.
Yeah, and last week on Friday, a woman in Syracuse, New York, she had this experience with Martin Luther King, and it was the first time anybody at one of the events shared an experience with Martin Luther King. This is a real mind-blower. And Martin Luther King said to her that he had some work for her to do in a couple of days. So she shared that in the workshop, and all 40 people in the workshop hear her say, Martin Luther King says, "I have a job for you that we're going to work on in a couple of days." That was on a Friday. On Monday morning, she emails me that her boss calls her in and gives her a different job taking care of the Martin Luther King Fund.
Huh. Wow. Those are just amazing stories and excellent examples of allowing ourselves to open our mind, utilize our imagination, our visualization, and take a journey, as you were talking about. And I know your workshops are on your website. Can you give us your website and any other information that people might need to contact you?
Well, my website is davidyoungmusic.com. I also have a Facebook page. It's under David Young. The other thing that I had that was really, really exciting last night was the worldwide launch of it. But there's people, because I sold way over 1 million CDs all over the world, there's people on different continents that can't really come see one of my events or experience this because they live far away. Mm-hmm. And so I just put together a live streaming channel where I have my own live streaming channel, and I broadcast. It's either going to start this week. We did the first live broadcast last night from New York City. And it'll either be this week or next week. You can find the information on the website. But wherever you live, you can experience one of these events by doing the live stream. And it's $22 if you want to do one session, or if you want to do a whole month of unlimited events, it's $40. And you can put headphones on and they'll feel like you're right there in the room with us. And the people who did it last night that were part of the live stream, They had incredible experiences. It was heart-opening. They felt the energy. It was like the next best thing to being there in the room with us.
Amazing. And so they will find that on your website, davidyoungmusic.com. Thank you, David, so much for being a guest on my show this week.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful day.
And thank you, listeners, for joining me here as well on Journey for Truth on Spreaker.com and on YouTube. Until next time, have a fantastic week.